Oh.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Good. You don't sound too bad.
Nah, I never really felt sick, which was the weird part. I had a sore throat on Monday, and the sore throat just didn't go away, but every other part of me felt fine. And so finally I just scheduled a minute clinic visit, which I feel bad because, like, I still watched Phil's kids and everything. Not thinking I was sick. Honestly, I thought I had, like, some sort of latent allergy thing, so I was looking for, like, a prescription strength sore throat thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
I get there, lady asked me some stuff, and then asked me if I've had strep throat. I'm like, I did have strep throat like 2-3 months ago. She goes, okay, well, we're gonna test you. I was like, no problem. Does the whole gagging thing, puts it in the thing, and then she just keeps asking me questions. I'm like, look, I don't feel sick. I just have this incredible pain in my throat. Like, it was really bad throat, like really bad stabbing pain in my throat. Everything else felt fine. No headache, no nothing. Had a little sinus pressure Thursday morning. That was it. But you can compare that to allergies. Like, it's nothing. Strep test comes back positive. She's like, you have strep. I'm like, are you fucking serious? And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry. She's like, you really don't feel like a headache or anything? I was like, I feel no other symptoms other than the sore throat. And she's like, you have strep. Wild. I'm going to put you on a Z-Pack. You'll be contagious for a day. So then I had to call everybody. I had to call Phil and tell him again that I am sick and have again exposed their children to something. It's so frustrating, too, because my friends, like, I wouldn't believe me anymore if I was my friends.
No.
Like, at this point, I would be like, he's a hypochondriac. Like, he definitely has a mental issue where he's a hypochondriac, and he just thinks he's sick all the time. That's what's wrong with him. Like, I wouldn't believe me if I was in any of their shoes. But, sure enough, yeah, I tested positive for strep again. So I have had, this year has just been like sick, broken arm, sick.
Time to get your fix. It's a horrible gaming podcast. It's not good, it's not great. Horrible gaming podcast. It's not even what you would call fair. It's really not that good. Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Hello, my name is Zechariah with Old Man Gaming. You, dear listener, for whatever reason, have chosen to listen to another horrible gaming podcast. I am not alone. Usually I am never alone. With me is...
Neil, a.k.a. Tiny Wizard.
So, we're here. We're doing another episode. We're getting close to that 200 that we still have no idea what we're going to do for
God,
it.
yeah.
Especially since Neil isn't even going to be in town.
Yeah.
So we're still trying to figure that out. But I think this will be 198 as far as it goes. We've done 198 of these fucking things. Well, I have. I think you've done like 150 or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say it's somewhere in that realm.
So I mean, this is a lot of fun. We're doing it. We're going to continue to do it. And we're about halfway through the year. So we're going to talk about our game of the years. I'm sure one of Neil's will make me mad.
Yes.
We will talk about like what we think about this year so far. We're just going to dive into that a little bit. And then we'll get into the news later. But before we do all that fun stuff, we've got to, of course, thank the people who have made this show possible. First, behind our ugly mugs, you're seeing a fancy custom graphic that is provided by Mr. Mark Bell. We thank him for that. And, of course, the theme song for this show and most of the shows here at Old Man Gaming is the man who makes the music, my brother Nick Van Siders. We thank him for that. We'll be right back with fan interaction.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to our first segment, our most important segment, that is fan interaction. That's where we, the co-hosts, we talk to you guys, the fans. We read out all your comments, we respond to them, we riff on them, whatever. So, let's get into it right off the bat. Asylum 66, 200th episode. So the chair idea is off. How about a dance-off? Asylum, one of the best parts of being the founder of this channel and being the person who edits all the stuff is I get to decide what content goes up and what I do. And I don't like to dance for people.
Yeah, same.
So I am not going to dance. I like to dance in dance halls. I like to dance with my wife. I do not like to shake my my booty for a podcast. So no dance off. Sorry, everybody. And really, you should be thanking me because while this camera only shows me my, bust up, it's just all dumpy garbage bag full of yogurt below hand. Okay,
Garbage bag full of yogurt.
It is. It is just a bag of sand slowly leaking out everywhere. It's terrible. It's a nightmare down there. If I stand up and I do a bunch of dances, you're going to see the full depth and breadth of that. You won't be able to go back from that. Plus, I'm going to let you guys in on another little secret. I always do this podcast in my pajamas. Every single fucking time. What I do this podcast in is pajamas, where sometimes my balls are hanging out, and I certainly don't want to dance and have my wrinkly brain flopping about while we're doing the dance-off. So we're gonna ex-nay that for all of those reasons.
Yeah, same situation. I am most definitely not a dancer either.
I mean, I think I'm a decent dancer, but I'm still a big fat white guy who is not gonna.
The most not. It's basically just kind of wiggling around, and I have the same sort of, this is basically what I do. Really straight up and down. That's all I do.
I had a friend who was just terrible at dancing. Rhythm was a foreign concept to him. It was almost like he was always nervous to miss the beat, that he never actually hit the beat because he was always waiting for the beat, and then the beat would hit, and he would hit the step after the beat, and it would just constantly be like, just his hands kind of going up and down, and then never hitting it. He was constantly trying to do it and couldn't do it. Terrible dancer. All right, I'm not going to name names, though. Next, Asylum 66 continues. Wow, a game got moved up. I hope its release is flawless. Yes, I will point out, games that get moved up have a pretty good record. There's one other game that got moved up in the last couple of years. Sifu. Motherfucker, that's one of my all-timers. So I'm actually hopeful for this. And let's face it, Baldur's Gate has gotten a lot of weird headlines recently.
Yes, it has.
And it's not going to be a game I rush out to play. This is probably Phil Billy 330's game of the year right now, I think. But it's just not going to be a game I rush out to play. But I hope it's good. I think Larian has a good track record. I think if they can move it, if they feel they can move it up, they're going to move it up, and it's going to be good. But only time will tell. Then we get to William Holt. Hi! Exclamation point. Love the second RoboCop 2. First two movies were amazing. Hell to the fucking yeah. I was surprised to love Scourgebringer as much as I did. I'm not huge on roguelites, not that skilled with games, but man, the feel of the movement and music in that game are really out there. One of my favorite game ever. I streamed an hour of Gollum, and that game is really not that bad. Wasn't worth the asking price, probably, but I would probably $5 enjoyed it, which is actually a callback to the episode that I guest starred on with him. Which, have you read it yet? Have you listened to it yet?
I most certainly have not.
You
no.
son of a bitch. I talk about you.
know.
I'm still not going to tell you what I say about you on it. You're
do.
not going to find out until you listen.
I know.
Thanks for the show. Hashtag tight lines. Hashtag farmin'. So, Scourgebringer, I know this is not one that Neil has played. I actually played it for review. I have a buddy who every once in a while just throws out some free indie game codes to me. And I got that and a couple others that I haven't reviewed yet. I got that, Panzer Paladin, which was alright. And then Wingspan, which I still haven't actually gotten around to trying. Scourgebringer was really awesome. I think it's a really sweet game. Neil, I actually think this is one that you would truly love. The music is Doom quality caliber music.
Oh yeah.
Just really good phenomenal pump you up music. It is a roguelike, but it's all platform platform, really fast action, shooty killy stuff. And it's really good. It's a very simple 2D kind of 8-bit style to it, and everything's extremely fast. Like the boss, I was talking about it on his show. The boss fight will take you like 90 seconds tops, and it'll be the longest 90 seconds of your life. Like that kind of stuff is really cool game. I urge anybody out there to go check it out. It's a relatively cheap game, and I don't think that you would regret it. Gollum, yeah, I don't think the Gollum is necessarily bad. I had heard some bugs and whatnot, but honestly, again, why are we making a game about a character that is literally created to be hated? Like, that is his one and only purpose. Let's not try and make him sympathetic at that moment. You know, not everybody has to be sympathetic, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think they could have. I mean, I don't know what it would be, to be fair, but like, I think they very well could have written the character to like, he's hated, but like, you know, oh, okay, you know, he's got his reasons if it was presented in such a way, you know. But
don't know.
at the same,
he murders his friend for jewelry. Like, that's his backstory.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, though, like, that game, I don't know, like, we've always talked about this before, like, people work on these things. Somewhere, someone, you know, was, like, proud of what they did.
Yes.
Maybe on an individual level, yes. But at the end of the day, like, it may objectively be a bad game, but that doesn't necessarily make it worthless.
Yeah.
It has its value somewhere. You know, maybe someday, one day, when it does drop to like actually $5, then yeah, absolutely, jump on it, go for it.
Yeah.
You know, it may be worth it at that point.
I don't know. I think it's counterintuitive when we take these properties. We have this bad habit in America of taking a property that's successful, an intellectual property that's successful, and just ringing it for everything until until we destroy the original idea that was centered around it in the first place. You take a character like Gollum, who is, like I said, he is sincerely put there for you to hate him. His whole thing is he is a reflection of what Frodo could become if he lets the ring control him, which is why Frodo won't kill him, because Frodo wants to redeem him. He wants to find a redeeming quality because he's so afraid that he will eventually become Gollum. So, like, he is a character, that is his purpose, and he serves that purpose really well in Lord of the Rings. When you then take that character and you try and give that character some sort of weird sympathetic backstory, it almost fucks up the source material a little bit. And we have this really bad habit in America of taking something successful, picking it apart, and just making stuff until we end up hurting the original product because it's all in canon now. You know what I mean? Like, when you watch it, like, oh, well, if that's why the bad guy did that, then, like, well, now I understand why the bad guy... You know what I mean? I can't hate the bad guy. You know what I mean? You eventually hurt the original characters in the original form. Some characters are not meant to have their own game or book or movie. Some characters are just meant to be characters for what they're there for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's definitely fair. I mean, that also said, that's one of my favorite tropes in anime is presenting a villain who's a long-running or even temporary villain, but they always get that one episode or even half an episode redeeming arc to where it's like, oh, that's why you're the way you are.
Well, and I like that. Yeah. I think that it creates a better story when you have a character, when you have a villain that you can identify with. Right. But, like...
what you're saying is a different thing. Yeah, like, an entire character who already has its own, other purpose. Yeah,
right. They take these, we take these stories, and if it's successful, we just start like surgically removing parts of it and making to add chunks to it. You know what I mean? Star Wars. And Star Wars is a huge. Exactly. There's so many things in Star Wars where I'm like, well, that destroyed Luke. Okay. Oh, that hurt Han. Okay. Well, that hurt Leia. You know what I mean? And you just start finding out more and more. Whereas if you just take the original 6 movies and you cut all that stuff away, they're great. They're great movies. But then you start to just add these chunks of canon in there, and it hurts it in the long run. Whereas you could just be like, we don't need to do that character. I mean, especially Star Wars. Star Wars is such a big and huge universe. Make new characters. Make a story about somebody else. Make a story about something else. When you
Anything.
Please. instead of just attaching it to those same characters over and over again.
Yeah.
You know, me and Phil have talked often about Mandalorian because I watched the first 2 seasons. I didn't watch the second season because I really didn't like some of the thing. I didn't like everything that happened in Boba Fett with the Mandalorian. So I was like, well, if that's where the Mandalorian season 3 is going to go, I'm going to skip that one. I feel like I was right to skip that one. But they really hurt Luke's character with some of the stuff they did in the Boba Fett story with the whole Grogu thing. And like, it's like, okay, now we're taking characters that are established and already cool and out there, and we're just attaching extra bullshit to them that hurts them. You know what I mean? And it's like, why? Yeah. Why did Luke even need to be that character? You know what I mean? Like, it didn't even need to be there. It's just because they're trying to constantly hit that, like, we need to have the established characters be part of this.
Yeah.
But by making them part of this and, like, shoehorning them in, you give them shittier and shittier personalities. You know what I mean?
So, weirdly enough, not to keep beating on this same topic.
Welcome to the Star Wars cast.
So, Kayla and I are watching Game of Thrones right now for the first time. We'd never seen it before.
Okay.
And one thing that they do that I absolutely love that they do in the writing for other characters, they will take a character's death and make that character's death almost a character trait of an individual. So they can still have that established character be around in a different fashion. So they can still pull from, you know, what that character did, what they said, you know, long-reaching consequences of either their actions or their influence on other things. And it's very much brought to the forefront. That is what I feel like they need to do with stuff like, you know, Star Wars and, you know, anything like that. Even like bringing it back home, like, you know, sequels to games. You know, we want to beat everything to death. And everything has to be, you know, a sequel to this, a sequel to this, a sequel to this. You can have a sequel that's in universe where you finish out one character's story and start over.
I mean, you look at even Halo. There's some stuff they've done in some of the prequels that I've even told you. I'm like, this hurts the overall story for me. You know what I mean? Like, whereas if Halo 1 through 3 had been Halo 1 through 3, okay, you know what I mean? It's done. But you just keep adding shit, and it just keeps weighing it down, you know, until, and then we end up in this point where, like, nothing can end good anymore. It doesn't end until it doesn't make money anymore, and people are bored of it, and that's just terrible. That means we never have good endings. We only ever have, like, saturated, heavy bullshit until people give up on it, and that's just terrible. That's terrible. All right. But moving on, finally. Jason chimes in. Some of these games that were were Series X/S or were slated to be Series X/S ended up releasing on Xbox One Edition later or at launch. Parentheses, still the Xbox One was my brother's. He bought it for his kids. This Xbox Series X is mine. Hey, more power to you for owning an Xbox Series X. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a bad piece of machinery. I think the PlayStation 5 is ugly, but I don't think that's a bad piece of machinery either. I think that, like, my big problem is they make these really expensive consoles and then they present it to you as in, this is the only way you could ever play games, which is not true. And then they also present it to you as, well, and then they hype up these very small extra features to try and make it in your mind worth it that you spent another $600 fucking dollars on one of those things when it's not. Almost all the games come out with slightly less graphics on the original ones for probably the first year. There are a couple that like only came out on the new ones, but like they don't really leverage the tech, and the tech that's there is not really that much better than the Xbox One. It just isn't. Like better frame rates, okay. Better graphics, sure, a little bit. Ray tracing isn't that great. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna go on record. It's not that great. It doesn't make that much difference. Frame rate, okay, maybe. Ray tracing, no way. And I'll tell you another thing. The ability to switch between two apps, cool. It is not worth $200 extra. You know what I mean? Plus, you also add in this SSD that makes it even harder for you to buy external hard drives to store your stuff on. And my problem is what they do is they take very minuscule advancements at this point because they can't make big advancements anymore. And then they take all the extra added bullshit and they sell it to you as if it's a great new feature when it's not. It's not at all, you know? And they could wait longer and it would be fine, you know?
You know, and it's funny, too. There's some things that definitely had potential to be greater than they actually were. Like, I don't know. I feel like smart delivery on the Xbox Series consoles is something that doesn't get talked about enough for updates and versions of games, you know, everything like that. And if I remember correctly, you could even choose if you wanted with smart delivery which version that you wanted if you wanted to like change save space. And then you have like on the PlayStation 5 the 3D audio. You know, the PlayStation 5, they sell headsets that are specifically like, isn't it something dumb like 9.1 channel surround sound?
Yeah.
And the headphones are $100, but like it's like more immersive audio than you could ever imagine in your entire life, basically. And we only heard about it like when the consoles were announced. And that's it. Like, they have these other things that they could leverage, but, I mean, it boils down to it's like they only, like, frame rate go up, game load more faster.
Well, and honestly...
Beep more boops. Like, that's basically it.
But honestly, even the huge surround sounds stuff, that's great. I'm not saying that's not cool.
Oh,
but
yeah,
like,
no, yeah,
you
absolutely.
can already hear the game. Do you really need that much quality sound? Like... that's my thing is you have these like aspects where they just like they're like, oh, it's like they throw these buzzwords at you which only incrementally increase your enjoyment of the thing when basically you're just buying a bigger, more expensive version of the thing you already own. I think that like, but don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking people who have bought the Series X or enjoy the Series X. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the way the companies present them to you, the way the companies release them is bullshit. Like, that's the problem that I have with it, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. Jason, Undead Labs didn't even make the State of Decay 3 trailer. Microsoft hired a CGI company. Of course they did. I didn't notice this when I watched it, but the protagonist of the State of Decay 3 trailer supposedly was in one of the Love, Death, and Robots episodes that company made for the series. Okay, so, again, I have said this so many times. We've both said this so many times. These announced trailers are not... They don't have to be anything. There doesn't even have to be a game in the works, i.e. Breath of the Wild, not Breath of the Wild, Good and Evil, Beyond Good and Evil 2. Like, there doesn't even have to be a game behind it. They could just hire a company to make a CG trailer that gets you excited. State of Decay 3, nothing different with that. I will say I didn't know about this protagonist Love, Death, and Robots thing, which I think is really funny to me. And what he means there, anybody out there who is uneducated on the CGI stuff, they reuse assets. So, like, they don't create the person you're seeing on the screen every time that person is in something. They'll, like, create, hey, like, this is this lady that we have. And then they'll take that lady and they'll use them in other CG things. You know, it's why a lot of times when you're playing indie video games, you'll run into characters that look exactly like characters from other games because you could just buy packs of, like, pre-rendered characters to add to your game so that it cuts down on development time. They do the same thing with CGI stuff. So Love, Death, and Robots is a Netflix series. Like, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's a sci-fi computer animated Netflix series. I didn't know this, that they shared the protagonist. I think that's hysterical.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't know. I knew they did, like, asset purchasing for game development. I didn't know they did that for, like, CG trailers and stuff like that. But, I mean, honestly, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Just because, like, these things just get shat out and, shipped off because somebody, like, we need something to show for a thing to, increase the revenue or, whatever the hell their excuse is this time.
Right.
And yeah, they just throw those out there, and we don't even have concepts behind some of these things, or it's all they are as a concept.
Right.
The worst thing ever was, I mean, back when Tears of the Kingdom was first announced for development.
Yeah.
Metroid Prime 4, same situation. You get a splash screen and now in development.
Yep.
That can mean literally anything. Now in development could be, hey, I'm thinking about stuff, or I jotted down a picture of a possible character in a notebook. It's in development.
Yeah, this isn't the first time this has happened. Outer Worlds 2, Fable 2, Halo Infinite, like, they constantly do this shit. That's why if you're not seeing gameplay, just write it off immediately, because you can never see it. All right, so our final comment is Bloody Nose. Nice to see you again, Buddy Nose. PS5 owner here. I've been contemplating for the last few weeks about switching over to the dark side and building a custom PC. How long is a PC lifespan before it is considered outdated? So this is what I wrote back to him. Hey, Bloody, so Phil and I built my PC on August 27th, 2020. I have not needed an upgrade yet, and I spent roughly $1,500. The upside is when you do start to need upgrades, you just need to buy a part here and there, and nothing is going to cost you more than the graphics card. I will also say that I bought a slightly old graphics card when I purchased to keep the price down. I believe I have 2 more years at least before I have to change it out. I also want a bigger SSD. So just to explain more, since we're on the channel, so once you have it, like, the biggest cost you're going to spend is building the PC. Once you have it, you're going to replace parts here and there when they become outdated. For me, I have not had to replace one part so far. I'm very happy with it, and I think it will be good for probably another year or 2 before I have to start messing with it. The thing that you're going to have to mess with on the reg is going to be your graphics card. That's the thing that's going to become outdated the fastest, in my opinion, and that's the most expensive thing. But I don't know, other than the graphics card shortage, I don't think you're spending that much for it. You know what I mean?
So my personal recommendation for a PC build is actually give yourself an upgrade path. The 2 most important components to that are going to be your motherboard and your power supply. Your motherboard is going to dictate what processors will be compatible and if your BIOS can be updated to support different processors in the future and their clock speeds. From there, your power supply is basically your cap as to how far up you can go. Perfect example. When I built mine, my power supply is a 750 watt, I do believe. All of your components pull a certain amount. You'll notice your processor, your graphics card, they have a recommended pull on them as to what their average consumption is. If you do not get a big enough power supply, you gate yourself off from upgrades, basically making an upgraded power supply mandatory. As it stands right now, the graphics card that I have a 2060 overclocked in my system. That is fine for what I have, but whenever one day I go to upgrade, I got a 2060 because of the graphics card shortage. I wanted one of the 30 series, but because of my limitations with my power supply, I can only go up to a 3070 before I have to upgrade my power supply as well. So food for thought. things to keep in mind.
I mean, in
it's
fairness,
lots
when you're
of-
upgrading, you can always just buy a bigger power supply.
Right.
Like, the
but
power supply is very interchangeable. The motherboard, I'll totally agree with, because the motherboard's a little bit harder to get out of the PC once you put it in. But, like, the power supply, you could very easily buy a bigger power supply when you buy the upgrade, you know.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But I'm talking about the frustration with it, especially if you have everything that's all built in or a modular. If you have a modular power supply, it gets a lot easier because you just plop the box out and call it a day. But then you have to worry about cable management, rerunning wires, everything like that, especially if it's like all built in and goes out to the system. You have to tear your whole computer apart effectively to change out the power supply at that point.
I mean, yeah, but build modularly. Like, that's what I'd say right off the bat.
Yes,
just build modularly.
very much.
That's what Phil does. I think most people build modularly nowadays. Just make sure you don't, you have a relatively easy, like with that, just buy a nice, like if you buy a nice, oh man, I can't remember what it's called, the shell, why am I blanking
the
on
case?
It? Yeah, the case, thank you. I do not remember the word case, for fuck's sake. If you buy a nice case with some good, like, that's very easily accessible, you'll be alright, like, because it'll be easy enough to get to it. You just have to, build modularly. I'll say this too, Bloody Nose, if you want to see me and Phil Billy build both my and his computers, both of those videos are on our channel. I think they're called Two Idiots Build a PC, 1 and 2. And then the first one was much more instructional. Phil goes through every process that he does, and you can watch him doing it on his PC. For mine, we went over the stuff. I think we fast forwarded a little bit more through the actual, like, individual building, because we had already done that. But you can watch those if you want any sort of ideas and whatnot, you know.
One last recommendation, along with, because when I was building mine, I actually watched your guys' videos too, just because I was very new to it. There's another tech channel out there called Linus Tech Tips. They routinely put out a how to build a PC video like once a year at least, especially if it's your first time. Just take like 2 days of Googling, and then from there you'll start to piece things together, and then just do a little bit of research. Truthfully, it's intimidating at first.
Yeah, but it's not that hard.
It's honestly not that difficult. It's just following a process.
As far as updating, I think that, again, you're going to, like, if you build stuff with current parts, you're going to have a long time before you have to really update. And when you do have to update, on the whole, it's going to be cheaper than buying a new console every 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, it just is. So, I mean, like when I buy my graphics card, it's going to be probably another $500, and then I'll be good for another, you know, like...
You'll be good for a while.
Yeah, for a while. Plus, like I've said repeatedly, the graphics cards, their innovations are going down. Like, this is a great time to get into a PC, because you get a graphics card that's current right now, it is going to have you for a while, because it's not like consoles, where consoles kind of cut it off themselves. Like, a PC can play... It's only limited by the specs, not Xbox deciding that this game should be on the next generation of consoles. You know what I mean?
And we're out of the GPU shortage now. So,
yes, that's
which
a big
is
thing
massive.
Too. Yeah, huge
massive.
Thing. Huge thing.
That's what bit me in the ass.
Yes, it did. It bit him hard. I bought my stuff right beforehand, so it was a lot easier to get my stuff. Or honestly, because my graphics card is slightly stronger than Neil's, even though I bought it about a year before. But Neil couldn't find one, so he had to buy an even cheaper one because of the shortage.
Lesser one.
Yeah.
The lesser one was not cheaper.
You know?
It was not cheaper.
I mean, GPO shortages could always get in your way. But overall, especially now, because like we've been saying repeatedly, consoles kind of... They go off these incremental changes, but what they do to get you to buy that console is they cut off the sales of the new games to the old console. They don't convert it to the old console. They just put it on the new one. Whereas with a PC, that's not the way it is. If your graphics card can play the game, your graphics card can play the game. It doesn't matter whether it's on the PS6, the PS7, the PS4, the PS5. It doesn't matter. If your graphics card can play the game, you can play the game. I will say exclusivity can sometimes be a bitch for PC owners because PlayStation definitely likes to keep some stuff close to their chest. And not put it on PC for like a year or two after its release. Sometimes never at all. Still waiting for Ghost of Tsushima to come to PC. Like, stuff like that can be really... You're not going to play any Nintendo games on PC. Like, put that out,
Well,
Chad.
you can.
Oh,
It's just not legal.
You cannot, because we're on YouTube. So, you cannot.
Nintendo's
You
already
definitely can't
preparing
go
paperwork.
buy... Yeah, you definitely can't go buy an emulator and play it that way, but yeah, just like that kind of stuff gets a little frustrating, but overall, you'll be able to play just about everything, and it will be great. Trust me, it was the best choice I ever made. We have ran way too long on Fantrax.
Yes,
So we are going to go to our talking point now. Bloody Nose, ask any more questions you want. Also, a great person to ask. He's in our Discord, PhilBilly330. There's a reason we call him the Buildmaster General. He built my PC, he built his own, and he is really good at this stuff. So, message him on Discord. He will answer any questions. He's a really friendly dude, and he loves to help with this kind of stuff. I know he's listening to this episode, and he's probably already disagreed with both of us 3 or 4 times. So, in any case, we're going to hit our Game of the Year watch for our talking point. We'll be right back with that.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to our talking point. Fun stuff. Okay, so it's July. It's month 7. 7 of 12. So we've
begun the second half.
We are on the second half. We are into the second half of the year in gaming. It's been an interesting year in gaming, to say the least. So we've decided to do an episode about what we think our game of the years so far are. So I've got a lot. I've actually been having a really hard time picking my game of the years so far. If you're taking out all the bullshit of gaming and you're just looking at the game's release, it's been a pretty good year so far.
Yes.
For quality releases. So we're going to talk about it. Neil, you want to start us off? What's your first experience of the year?
Yeah, so, I'll just get the one out of the way that Zach's going to get mad about. Just to be done with it. Just to be done with it.
Fucking do it.
Honestly, Tears of the Kingdom, I'm at 70 hours, I believe it is now. I did what I said I was going to do and finish the second of the 4 temples, and I bought Street Fighter 6, which is we'll get there eventually, with the sole intention on only getting so far in Tears of the Kingdom to savor it. But I cannot. It's right now for me. It is straight up just like junk food. I cannot stop. Cannot stop, even though I'm trying to do so. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I still find new stuff. I'm still thrown off by how they've chosen to tackle certain things without any sort of spoilers. The Master Sword is different this time around. Okay. But yeah, absolutely loving the game. I won't dwell on it too long because I can taste your blood pressure rising.
It's your game of the year. I'm not going to say it shouldn't be your game of the year. Personally, I have watched it being played. I watched it being played to educate myself. Just because when I'm hating something, I need to make sure that I'm hating it for the right reasons. I think I'm 100% right in my right reasons after watching it. I think that this is a quality sequel. But that's it. It's just more of the same. Same UI, same game. The only thing they did was they took the powers and they allowed you to make dick robots. That's all I'm seeing in this. There's nothing else really amazing to me about that, which is why it would kind of be X'd for me, because I thought Breath of the Wild was really fun. I played a lot of Breath of the Wild, and I'm sure that if the evil shit that they did around this game weren't so evil and shitty, I'd play a lot of this if I wasn't boycotting it. But I would probably still not count it as my game of the year just because I felt the groundbreaking stuff all happened in the first game. And this is after having watched about 20 hours of this game. I think that, like, they do some new stuff, but, like, it's just a couple of new stuff. Everything else is really just the game. And the stuff that people really asked for, I don't think that they addressed in any way, shape, or form. They did their usual Nintendo thing. They ignored every request, everything that anybody wanted, and they just did whatever the hell they wanted to do. And I don't know. So, like, aside from, like, objectively, all rants about the price and the bullshit around it aside, if this game was priced the correct way and I had purchased it and played it, it still wouldn't be on my list just because I feel like all the innovations came with the first one. I really do. Like, this one did make some improvements, but, like, overall, the really good stuff was Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild 2 is just more of Breath of the Wild with a couple of new powers. And that's why I don't know if I would count it. So, again, I'm trying to be very nice in my rant. I want to point it out. I'm not screaming at anybody, not yelling at anybody, not even talking about the price, not even coming into that, because personally, when we're talking about subject like this, like Game of the Year, I don't think the extra bullshit should count. I don't think it should count. When you're talking about the experience of the year, when you're talking about game of the year, you're talking about what the game, just the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, I can't denote stuff just because of evil corporate bullshit. Like, what's the game about? And just comparing this game to the first game, I feel like all the really cool advancements were made in the first game. This one just kind of, like, did more of that, basically. So that's why I would kind of write it off. But, again, I want to point out, not doing the rant thing, okay? That's my thoughts on that game for the game, the core game itself.
So, what's your first one?
All right, so I want to tell everybody, there is a system that I have. Okay, so anybody who is new to this channel, once a year, we do our own game awards, right? We do the Horrible Game Awards, and we do our own Game Awards show. The beginning of the minute that stops, I make a little thing on my phone, and every time I think a game belongs on it or in a category, I put it on it and in a category. And if I start to fill up, I check mark games out of the category, basically. So I never have too many. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I have a huge list of games, soundtracks, IPs, multiplayers that I've played that I think deserve to be here. But we're talking about Game of the Year. For us, we usually do Experience of the Year when we're doing the award show. But we're talking about just the games this year. I've got to say, my number one right now has got to be Age of Wonders 4. I think that game is phenomenal. I know that's not as flashy or as in your face as some of the other games that I could say or put here, but I think that, like, Age of Wonders 4, I don't know. I think it's a game in its genre that is a banner game. I think for 4X, it is one of the best games out there. It's the best 4X game, in my opinion. I'm going to say it. It's better than any civilization I've ever played. It's just the best. Age of Wonders 4 is my best. It's just the best quality game in it. They released it perfectly. There were some bugs. They quickly fixed it. They've already got a DLC out that I paid for willingly and am very happy with. There's no weird microtransactions in it. And just the game itself plays so wonderful. It just keeps calling me back. It's just the ability to create your own race from scratch and then go into the game. It's just so good. It's so good. I've got to mention it first. I know there's not much meat on that bone to talk about it, but it's just got to be mentioned. It's got to be mentioned. It's so good.
Well, I mean, that's the thing too, is like you don't necessarily have to have like that. Games are good for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
One of them is just like it's just fucking good, okay?
Right.
To like pull off of one of the ones that would be on my list anyways is one that I mentioned to you last week that I actually made the purchase of when we were in the middle of getting set up for the podcast. Finally got a chance to get my hands on Pizza Tower, and it is wonderful. It is.
Cool.
There's no like, if you were expecting some deep story, it is. Dude has pizza shop. Giant phantom pizza wants to destroy pizza shop. Climb tower to stop giant phantom pizza. That is the game.
That's old school Nintendo lore.
It really is. Now, this game, I don't know who all knows how much about this, but this game is directly inspired by Wario Land 4 for Game Boy Advance.
Oh.
And there was nothing ever like that after it happened. I don't know if you're familiar with the game, but basically you would have your levels, you go through the level, but once you get to the end, it's a side-scroller thing. There's not an end point. There's a timer that you hit. It then sets you on a race back to the start.
Right.
But the path that you took changed. There's like phantom blocks that switch on to make you go a different way.
Right.
So the first half of the level is just like a normal platformer, you know, whatever. But the second half is a speed run. Now, what's very interesting about that is they've also kind of turned you into just like a coked out rocket. You can run so fast in the game. First and foremost, I feel like Sonic team needs to take some notes from this, straight up and down. But you can run so fast that it gets to be a point that you cannot be hurt. And if you encounter a wall, you just immediately climb it. There's no jumping.
Right.
So it's just, that's the thing. It's just crazy, chaotic fun. And the soundtrack, I absolutely adore the soundtrack. And it's one of those games that doesn't have to have like the best graphics. Right. It's done in Microsoft Paint, basically.
Right. Well, and we've talked about it a lot. The best games out there are not the games with the best graphics, in my opinion. Which is going to go into my next call out. But before I get to that, on the Pizza Tower thing, I think that, like, yes, Sonic Team, because I've watched some Pizza Tower.
Yeah.
And, you echo my thoughts on the Sonic thing. Can I tell you my biggest problem with Sonic? And I think we talked about this before, and why I, as much as I love Sonic, I don't always love the 2D iterations of them. Because they do this thing where they're like, run as fast as you can through the level, and run really fast. And then they make these sections where you're just supposed to run really fast. And then they just put a big wall of spikes at the end.
Yeah.
And there's no way...
Do the thing you're supposed to do.
Right. It's like here, run. Oh, spikes. I think that, like, I hate that. Sometimes Sonic goes out of its way to punish you for doing the thing that Sonic does. And I don't like that. Whereas Pizza Tower, like, you run fast, and you are only ever rewarded for running fast. You definitely have to dodge things and jump things, but they do it in a way that's intuitive to you running fast. They never just, like, sit a ball of spikes right in front of you, or make it so that you hit a wall and just all your forward momentum stops. They're like, with this, your forward momentum is constantly moving unless you decide to stop it. And I think that that's what's really cool about Pizza Tower, and why, yes, I think in a lot of ways it's a better runner than Sonic is. But I'm just going to dovetail right into mine, because mine is another one that doesn't have the best graphics, and it is a recent one. And it was a hard choice for me to put this on my list, because I had to bump something else off. But Dave the Diver. Dave the Diver's fucking amazing, guys. I cannot say how amazing it was. And I'll tell you what made me put it on the list is last night I continued to play it, and I unlocked 2 more different content things to do. Like, every time I play that thing, something else becomes unlocked to do. That isn't just fishing and serving sushi, which is still at the core, but, like, it's constantly showering you with things where it's like, well, now you can farm rice. Now you can fucking farm fish. Now you can do seahorse races. Now you have to craft weapons, and it's Monster Hunter style. Now you gotta hunt this. Like, That game is just so perfectly paced. Like, just perfectly paced of where it starts you and where, I don't know where you finish because I haven't gotten there, but as it continues. Plus, they do this great stuff of, like, integrating side quests and stuff to the point where it becomes part of the story. One thing I always hate about games with side quests is you do the side quest, it's over. You never talk to that person again. You never see that person again. You know what I mean? Like take Skyrim for a change. Like, you meet somebody in Skyrim, they need you to go get a dagger or something. You go get a dagger, you bring the dagger back, you give it to them. You never talk to that person again.
Yeah.
That's so weird, man. Could you imagine doing a favor for somebody and never speaking to them again ever in your entire life? That's crazy. Like, you can't build friendships. You can't build relationships. And, like, Dave the Diver weirdly does this. Every person you do a side quest for becomes somebody who helps you or continues to talk to you. One of the first people you meet in the game is this character named Yoshi, who is like a recruiter who has a problem with the sushi chef, and you have to make her this sushi dish or whatever. And then once you make her the sushi dish, right off the bat, she's like, I think you guys are great. I'm going to help you. She keeps coming back. She keeps giving you lore. She helps you hire people from that point on for your sushi bar. There's another one where you meet this little kid who's traumatized because of her father's disappearance. And you have to make her a dish. You make her the dish, she becomes a cook for your restaurant. Every character, once you do something for them, becomes integrated into the storyline. Even the characters that are one-offs, there's some VIPs that you meet, and like once you meet them, you cook for them and they're done. But like even those characters, like, here's what I'm going to do for you, and then they like, there's a long-lasting effect in the storyline and gameplay, which is amazing. I think that's an amazing subtlety. Plus, the game just plays really good. It's just a really good, solid game from top to bottom. I think Dave the Diver is great, and it should definitely be in discussion at the end of the year. It's going to probably be on my list when we're talking about it later. I don't think anything's going to erase it from it.
Yeah, definitely this year, it's really hard this year.
Because I got like
for
2 more.
honestly, yeah, and truthfully, I'm just gonna cut it off with one more.
Okay.
For myself, just because, like, I've said before that I was thinking that this year was going to be a repeat of 2016. 2016 was one of those really good years.
Yeah.
And honestly, this year has lived up to that. That it's straight up and down with what we finished off. I mean, there's stuff that...
If we're just talking about the content.
Right.
Just talking about the content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Just the content. Because, like, I mean, there's games like... For Christmas, I got the Final Fantasy VII remake, or not the regular Final Fantasy, the Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII remake.
Mm-hmm.
I've not even installed that on my PlayStation.
Yeah.
Because I had still to finish God of War. I had Hogwarts Legacy, which is the next one that I'm going to talk about, and all other games. I still haven't even played Street Fighter 6. I got it installed at least. It's ready to go. But
yeah,
that's the thing. Yeah, Hogwarts Legacy is the last one I'm going to talk about here. That's one of those games that I straight up and down, I was thoroughly surprised with for a multitude of reasons. I honestly was expecting that game to be all WB'd up in regard to microtransactions and shenanigans. I mean, there is one sour note in it in the whole handling of Quidditch and what the internal narrative within the game, and then the surprise announcement of that live service Quidditch game that they're doing separately. But outside of that, like, I remember when that first leaked that they were testing a Harry Potter game in universe where you got to make your own student and do your own thing. Everybody was like, is it real? Is it, what are we going to be able to do? Oh, we're probably not going to be able to do as much as we think we're going to be able to do. You're going to have like 2 spells. Like, no, like there's a whole list of everything. And if you are familiar with the lore, they go deep on lore. and you can play that game however you'd like to play it. Now, of course, I had fallen off of it because, you know, all of the games and all of the land. But it wasn't one of those things that, like, I was like, I'm kind of bored with this. I'm going to go to something else. Like, no, I actively want to go back to it. In fact, Kayla's been playing it. I think she's still playing it right now. She finished the main campaign last night on it. And she's like 70 hours into that. So, like, the game has just so much to offer for an open world, and the fact that they did not just cram it full of trash.
Yeah.
Because I remember one of the first things, I can't remember if we mentioned it on the show here or not, but whenever they showed the trailer and the real-time countdowns to do stuff, immediately, very first thing that I had said was they're going to find a way to charge money to speed those timers along.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
No.
They resisted the urge. Warner Brothers themselves, somehow.
I think Avalanche. I think we should give Avalanche more props than Warner Brothers.
Be Avalanche more than
I
anything.
can't echo your statement enough. This was one of the two that I was going to mention. There's definitely some downsides to Hogwarts. I will say that, depending on the type of player you are. But as far as the game goes, it's very quality. I do remember you and I talking about it. I do remember you and I kind of like, it's going to have like 2 spells, and it's just going to be battle magic. The magic is actually really good. Yeah. I really enjoyed this game. They put a lot of thought into it and a lot of interesting stuff. There is a ton of lore in it. I will say, because I speak for this audience, if you are a middle-aged father with not a lot of time on your hands and you've got a game to pick up for like an hour or 2 a day, this is not the game. There's like they'll have conversations that'll last an hour. There's a lot of lore, a lot of story here. There's also a thing in this game that I absolutely despise, which I've talked about, which is unskippable, uncontrollable cutscenes. I mean, you can skip them, but you skip them in like 30-second chunks, so it's a lot of cutscenes. And the cutscenes, you have no player agency whatsoever. Like, your character just does whatever your character's going to do, and I hate that. I hate that. That being said, this game is really good. The combat is really solid. There's a lot of stuff to do in it. It makes you really, if you're a Harry Potter fan, it makes you really feel like you're at Hogwarts. One of the things that I love that I actually talked about, because I played 3 episodes of this in Prelude with my wife, one of the things I really loved was the fact that like every class has like its own mechanic. Like when you go to class, they find a way to make classes interesting, which that's hard. That's hard. Like, if somebody told me we're going to make a game about school, I would not be in for that. But, like, every time you go to a class, the professor is really endearing and interesting, and there's always some sort of mechanic that goes into, like, whatever you're learning from the professor. I think it's really cool. There's so many things to find and do on that. I do enjoy it. Like I said, there are a couple of downsides. I'm not going to go into them now, but it definitely deserves mention on this list without a doubt. That was actually going to be one of mine. The other one I want to mention, if that was your last one then.
Yeah, that's the last one I'm going to go into.
Last one I want to mention is Wild Hearts. I think Wild Hearts has a little bit fallen out of the public eye a little bit, but I think it's no less important. It was a really solid Monster Hunter competitor. I still think that game is really awesome. I am planning on going back to it when I don't have anything else to play. It really gave me that Monster Hunter World feeling while still being different and new and interesting. And I really enjoyed Wild Hearts. I will say this. It was a broken, buggy mess at launch, which was a real bummer. I'm not going to argue that if anybody comes at me with that. And if you want to deduct points from that for your game of the year, I get it. I'm not going to fault you for it. But in its current state, that game's awesome. It's a really fun, awesome game. It's a great Monster Hunter alternative. It's a lot of fun. I love that game.
Yeah, that was one that I was waiting to be on your list because that was definitely an itch that needed scratched from what it sounded like for yourself until Monster Hunter World 2 comes out someday one day.
Yeah, if ever. I have no idea. I will say I'm very excited to one day go back to Wild Hearts 2 because I beat the main quest line. the main story, and I did most of the like little side stuff. But they've already added more monsters to hunt, and they're going to be adding weapons if they haven't already, which I think is really cool too. So I'm very excited to eventually jump back into it once I'm bored with Dave the Diver. Dave the Diver's got me, everybody. He's got me good. But yeah, so that's it for our Game of the Years, right? Anything else we want to shout out, or shall we move on to the news?
We shall move on to the news.
All right, we'll move on to the news, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, that brings us to our last segment, ladies and gentlemen. This is the news. We collect news stories we want to let you guys know about. We tell you about those news stories, and we riff on them ourselves. I don't have any news stories today, although I may have one. I have not. I'm going to decide in the moment whether I want to talk about it or not. But Neil's got 3, so he's going to take it away.
All right, so one of these, I'm actually would be surprised if you haven't seen this at all yet. One that some people care about, some people don't. I personally do not care about it, but I think you may. Apparently, Starfield is only going to have 4 romance options in whole.
Yes.
And they're going to be
like
relegated to like the big main faction / cities. Like I said, I personally, anytime I play a game, I super don't care one way or another about romance options. But I know it matters to some people, like yourself.
Matters to me.
Yeah.
I like game fucking. I always have liked game fucking. I'm pro game fucking. I always have been. The thing that I don't like about this, okay, is the same thing with Cyberpunk. And I am glad that they've said something publicly at this point before the game came out, because Cyberpunk never did. But that gameplay trailer made it look like you could romance everybody. Like, it made it look like you could romance NPCs, you could romance them. They really let that go. So for them to come out and say you can only romance 4 people, I think it's kind of I don't like it. And here's why I don't like it. I like that they said it before the game came out, because like I said, Cyberpunk never did. Cyberpunk lets you think you could have a relationship with any Joe Schmo you found on the street. Ended up you could have a relationship with 3 people and prostitutes. And you didn't find that out until release. With this game, they at least said something. However, they're also banking on the fact that you don't see that in the news, that you only watched the giant gameplay reveal because you're a more casual person. That's my problem, is these game companies love to do that. They love to show you a big thing, and Bethesda has been doing that on Starfield since the beginning. Here's what they do. They show you a big, huge trailer that makes it feel like you can do anything, it's going to be awesome, and then the next day, they get in an interview and say some of the stuff they said isn't real, but it's in some interview buried in the news that you can't see. It's the same with the planets thing. They pointed out in that gameplay overview 1,000 plus explorable planets. Then the next day they're like, only about 10% of those have anything on it whatsoever. Okay, why is that a feature that you're announcing? It's the same thing with this. Their specific wording on this was like, you're going to be able to meet NPCs. You're going to be able to have those NPCs crew your ship, even forge relationships with them, and have NPCs. That does not say 4 people. You know what I mean? That doesn't say, you can romance 4 key characters. You didn't even say you can romance some of them. You just said you can romance them. You know what I mean? Like, my big problem with this is that Bethesda is a real bad lawbreaker when it comes to showing you a trailer, then immediately telling you that's not all in there right afterwards. Don't put it in the trailer, okay? Don't put it in the trailer. Don't advertise it that way. Like, if you have to disclaimer it every time right after, it's kind of bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, disclaimers all the time in those sorts of situations. It's like, well, forget everything that I just said. This is, what we're actually saying. Especially in a game that's as large as Starfield. Yeah. You would think that they would, just have the ability to just take some random NPC. Like, couldn't you do that in Skyrim?
No. There
No?
were certain there was a lot more
I might have been
characters.
thinking of a mod. I think I might have been thinking of a mod.
There's a lot more characters in Skyrim though. Like there's like I want to say there's like 6 to 10 characters in every city that you could potentially marry.
Oh yeah, because I know the one name, the one girl, I can't remember her name in Whiterun, who would like live in your house.
Yeah, but the mechanic was way different. You'd wear a necklace that meant you were single, and then you'd have to do whatever quest they had for you, and then once you did that quest, you'd be like, "Hey, you want to be married?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, sure," and then you just be married. Like there wasn't like. It wasn't like Mass Effect, where like you have to build a relationship with them and figure out about their past to get them to F you. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't as involved as that. But still, yeah, why not just do that? Like, or hey, don't put it in the game. That's fine. Don't put it in the trailer. You have a 20-minute trailer. Why the fuck are you disclaimering a 20-minute trailer? You know what I mean? In the year of our Lord 2023, you can't find a way to not say fake things in the trailer? Like, that's my problem. Like, what? My problem isn't the fact that there's only 4 romances. My problem isn't the fact that there's not enough people to bang. My problem is the fact that they make it seem like it's possible to anybody who doesn't watch those really in-depth news feeds. You know what I mean? And those people they're going to get.
Yeah. So moving on here to the next one. Halo Infinite has not been doing well. They've now first removed all of the like story stuff that they've had for their seasons. It's now just like, here's some more shit. Play the thing. Because they had like a story thing beforehand. Gets worse. Halo Infinite on Steam is basically dead at this point. Steam player levels are 2% of what their numbers were at launch. So right. Yeah, there's like nobody playing it. I mean, considering how poorly it's done, at least like Xbox players are still kind of on it, but only kind of. It's kind of crazy, honestly. At this point, I don't know. I don't know even what they could keep doing to support the multiplayer. They're just supporting the fans that have stuck around. I mean, myself even, I haven't even played it since.
Why?
Woof, I can't even remember.
They haven't done enough to keep the player base, in my opinion. Like, of a multiplayer shooter. They haven't done enough. They haven't made it interesting enough. They haven't done enough. I mean, you look at, like, a long-lasting property like Call of Duty that continues to have a huge player base for their multiplayer shooter. Like, they are constantly changing things. And those things are not always good. Most of the time they're pretty shitty, but they're constantly doing stuff to that game to keep players coming back, to keep them doing interesting things. I don't feel like Halo did enough. I don't think there was enough modes. I don't think there was enough that was dynamic about the actual multiplayer to keep people in. I think the problem is everybody went in there. They had a fun Halo time. They remembered their childhood and LAN parties and that fun stuff. And then that quickly died because they didn't have enough. They didn't have a dynamic enough, interesting enough game behind it. And then they went back to the thing that is dynamic and interesting and holding them. You know? Yeah. I mean, that's my theory. I'm not a Halo guy right now or ever again, so I don't play it. So I don't know. But that's my feeling. I don't know.
Yeah, I almost wonder if they thought their version of like modernization of the game was taking what there was like a snapshot in time to where that's what Call of Duty was, very much like it was like point based almost, more so than like, you know, kills, KD, everything like that. They said, hey, we need to make more like Call of Duty, let's do like that. I mean, the last time they tried to do that was with Halo Reach when they did the loadouts. They said, hey, Call of Duty does that, let's do that. But at that point in time, they were a little quicker on the draw, so it kind of felt right there. Honestly, I judged when they were talking about it, but I almost wonder if the Battle Royale Halo game would be what they need to bring people back in.
Honestly, I have never said it, but I've always kind of felt like when they said we're never going to do a battle royale for Halo, that was a huge mistake. Because what first-person shooter doesn't have a free-to-play battle royale mode that brings people back in? You know what I mean? There's none. There's none out there that doesn't have that. And I feel like Halo would benefit from that. I think deathmatch gets boring. It just does, especially nowadays. People look for a much more dynamic way to play their games. I think just like 4v4 constantly spawning gets boring. And there's a reason that every other first-person shooter out there doesn't only do that. You know what I mean? And I think that was a big mistake on Halo's part, is that they only ever had that really 4v4 deathmatch experience, you know?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, they've tried different things. They were at one point with 5 doing things in the multiplayer that were like, okay, cool. We're branching out. We're doing stuff. We're doing our own spin on things, our own version of things that kind of felt like natural progressions. They had a PvE mode. Well, it was actually a PvPvE mode. And they had, like special big team battles to where there's like consumables and like you can build up sprees.
Yeah.
And it was great. But then this came out and they were just like it was a panic mode. I don't know what the situation was.
Yeah. I don't feel like they ever really did anything interesting enough to stay relevant is their problem, you know? Okay. So what's your next one, man?
The last one here that I have is hilarious. So Assassin's Creed, they're apparently doing a remake of Black Flag.
Yeah.
So just to kind of spin this around here, Skull and Bones was inspired by the ship mechanics in Assassin's Creed Black Flag.
Yep.
And now they are considering a remake of Assassin's Creed Black Flag before Skull and Bones has launched. The thing that inspired another game is getting a remake before the inspiration is coming out. Of course, it's not confirmed yet or anything, but I just think that this is fucking hilarious.
Well, and here's the thing. What'll this be? Like the third confirmed remake from Ubisoft that is in development? I'm going to say this again. Ubisoft just makes headlines. They don't make games. They haven't released a game in like 2 years. Like not a AAA experience. But they have announced 20 games in the last 2 years. Easily. Look it up. Look it up. They've announced fucking 9 Assassin's Creed games. They've got a Prince of Persia game in the make. They've got the remake to Prince of Persia on the back burner. They got Beyond Good and Evil 2. They have Skull and Bones. Just game after game after game that they've announced, and they haven't released any of them. I am like, they're just making buzzwords at this point. Like the last AAA game that came out for them was Far Cry 6.
Mm-hmm.
That's the last AAA experience.
Yeah, and the last game overall that Ubisoft put out was the Mario and Rabbids, Sparks of Hope.
Yeah.
And that was, if I remember correctly, what was it, November last year?
Yep.
Something like that. Yeah. So now we're, almost a year from that. Mm-hmm. And not a zip zero zilch.
I think
you're
that
not Rockstar, you can't get away with that.
No, especially not when you have so many. Like, how are you working on all these projects? Explain that to me, Ubisoft. Where do you, even as big as you are, where do you have the manpower to work on all these games? There's at least 5 Assassin's Creed in the works, not including this Black Flag potential remake. There's Skull and Bones. There is the Prince of Persia game, the other Prince of Persia game. There's Beyond Good and Evil 2. There is the new Star Wars game that they just fucking announced. There's another Division game. I'm already over 12. I don't have fingers anymore. You don't have the people to work on all these games. It's like every day they announce a game. They announce one, but then they don't do anything with it. Like, I don't understand what they're doing, and I will be surprised if there is an Ubisoft come 2025. And I'm gonna say right now, if it continues this way and we hit our prediction show for the year, one of my predictions I can guarantee you is going to be there is no Ubisoft after next year, because I don't think Ubisoft is going to be around much longer.
Yeah, I want to take a look. I want to see where we're at with, because I was smart this year and
wrote down those predictions.
Yeah, wrote them down here. I'm not going to speak to any of them, but it definitely looks like we all kind of have a little bit going on with these.
Yeah,
in some
I think
form or another.
Yeah, because Philby was talking about. I was talking about with Philbilly, and I feel like all of us have at least like one point or a half a point somewhere on there already, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna do my last odds, even though it's insane. Baldur's Gate 3 has romance options, and
oh, I saw this.
You can apparently have sex with a druid while they're turned into a bear, and
yes.
I got problems with this, Neil. I don't know if I can, and I'm a huge proponent of fucking in games, but like the mechanics of this. First of all, everybody out there, bear dicks aren't made for people places. They just aren't. They're too big. You can't put that anywhere. That'll kill you. And if it's the other way around, then you're dropping a dick down a well. Like, it's not doing anything for the bear. And last time I checked, druids can't morph everything but their genitalia. So this is really confusing to me. Really confusing to me aside from anything. Plus, do you have to have sex with an animal? Like, I mean, I know it's not an animal. It's a person morphed into an animal. But, like, Jesus, man. Even furries, they want them to kind of look like people. I'm so confused by this. And I hate that this has turned into an old man rant. But, like, this is the weirdest decision ever for me. Ever.
Yeah, I'm not sure what has brought them to that. I mean,
so weird.
To them.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess. Can't we just have normal fucking? I'm good with normal fucking. Not even normal fucking. I don't want to say normal fucking because I'm not against like same-sex fucking or anything like that. I'm just saying like, why's it gotta be a bear? Why's it gotta be like a full-grown fucking bear? Like, who was like, which game designer was like, came into the room, was like, we should be able to fuck this in our games.
Fire sex.
And everybody was like, yes, definitely. Like, no! Was there anybody who was like, hey, it's a bear. It's a bear. Do they know it's a bear? And also, Bob, do you need help? All right. So that is it for news then, I believe?
Yeah.
All right, let's do the plugs and be done.
Yeah.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the show. And the shameless self-promotion that comes with it. Neil, anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, so we are going to have a little bit of a delay on Redfall Down. Just a small. But honestly, that's kind of on par with how we used to do. We used to do, like, episodes and then a break anyway, so it's not the end of the world. I mean, it's not like we're playing a good game. A fun game, but not a good game.
This is true. It will be back in a week from this Saturday. It will be back. Unless something goes wrong. We missed the recording session because of me and my weird constant need to be sick, apparently. as far as me, Getting Over's back on Mondays. It's where I play the solo journaling wrestling promoter RPG that I made myself. $4 on drive-thru games, if that sounds interesting. If not, come check me out while I demo it, and you can see that it's kind of interesting. And then Astral Drive, I will be streaming that 9:30. We're in episode 7. Things have gotten really interesting between the group. It's been a lot of fun. That's me, Phil Billy, Wizards Respite, and Aether Dios. Other than that, we got a ton of content going up. Prelude to Divorce is back. We are doing a ton more Oregon Trail episodes. Which includes some of my favorite episodes of all time. So please check that out. They're a lot of fun. Anything Melissa gets into makes everything more fun. So check that out. And then I gotta get some game streaming going at some point. It's just like I said, I needed to take some more time for me and get it up sometime. But for now, you can check this out on there. And then, of course, this Friday, our TTRPG podcast, myself and Wizards Respite will be back as we do that bi-weekly. We're recording that tomorrow, I think. So check all that stuff out. Check out everything we have to offer. We like doing content, and we like it when you watch that content. You can contact us on Facebook at OmegaMDH, on Twitter at OmegaMe9. You can join our Discord. Links in the description below. Influence this and all of our shows from there. Comment below. I'll read them. We'll talk about them in fan interaction. And as usual, ladies and gentlemen, as long as you keep making them and you keep listening, we'll keep making them. You didn't make them. I made them. As long as you keep watching and listening, I'll keep making them. We're fucking done. Pause.
For about 2.5 hours yesterday, and about the last half hour, I was down here messing around with that 3D printer, and I still can't get shit to print out.
You know, I don't know if you have a way to talk to Mark, but Mark does 3D custom printing for people.
I'm just like
he might be able to give you some advice on how to get it started. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The thing is, I know what to do now after my in-depth crash course I gave myself yesterday.
Okay.
The problem is the getting to do the thing. So, like, perfect example. Let me show you something.
Okay. Show and tell here. This is a long wait if we're going to use this.
So, I was going to print out a test cube.
Okay.
There was different models that I downloaded. One of them, in my hubris, I found an N7 metal.
Oh,
that I was like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna print that out. And it kept crashing out. I couldn't get it. So I was like, you know what? I really should start like small potatoes. And I found like this 3D cube. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna try and get it printed. I cannot level this bed out to save my life, because what's happening is it'll start to print, and then the bed will be level at one point, but then because it's not level, as it continues on in the area, it starts to like lift away because that bed's not level, and then it just starts spewing. This is the closest that I have gotten to a cube. This is it.
Got a right angle in there.
Right angle in there. I can't take any credit for that right angle because this long strip is the test line that it prints out to make sure that it gets all of the filaments starting to go. So yeah, that's how it's going. I'm hoping by next week I'll at least have some sort of competent something to present.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. Yeah, it's been.
I want you to make me dice when you get good at it.
I tell you what, man. Like I already have like a laundry list of things that I want to make. I print out. There's dice tower. I found a dice tower.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That'd be great because I need a dice tower.
Yeah, we're gonna have you make our merch.
There it is, 3D printed everything.
Dude, old man gaming dice. That would be fucking sweet.
There you go.
Just the white and the red. Yeah. Okay.